Here in Norwich, Vermont, for more than a century, this general store has been as much a fixture in the community as the church steeple. But then that sign went up, screaming a desperate need in neon orange, a warning sign of an end approaching. Dan Frazier is the owner of Dan and Wits.
How many openings did you have?
All of them.
All of them?
Yeah. It was like, we're going to have to lock the front door because we have zero help.
This was your dad's business. This was your grandfather's business.
Right.
And it was going to close on your watch?
Yeah, which would be tough when you've invested your whole life into it.
Customers were equally devastated. Of course, that happens whenever a small town loses an iconic business. But what sets this place apart is that these customers didn't just give Dan their sympathies. They gave him their applications.
I'm so excited to have you here.
Well, it's so nice to be here.
This retired finance director applied for a job in the deli.
There we go.
Dr. Rick Farrell is working checkout.
I'm just trying to get the cash register to work.
People from all over town and all walks of life
Sign in.
punched in to help Dan stay open.
There I am.
I'm a therapist.
Teacher, second grade teacher.
Professor of psychology.
Principal of the middle school. I'm an RN.
So far, nearly 24 customers, like Diane Miller, have stepped up.
Because Dan and Wits is the heartbeat of this community.
It's the heart of our town.
For some reason,
The heart of the town.
I really got this
It's
sense
the heart of this town.
that Dan and his store are the heart of the town. And as if stocking shelves and running register weren't enough, virtually all of these new hires are donating their hourly wage to some of Dan's favorite charities. Dan says this has all been just the help he needed.
Absolutely. The fact that the community stepped up, you know? I mean, sometimes it takes sort of a crisis, if you will, to appreciate what you have.
How are you?
And in Norwich, they have what every town needs more than anything.
Thank you.
Each other. Steve Hartman, On the Road, in Norwich, Vermont. This is not a national park.
Signals work?
This is a vehicle inspection site in Katy, Texas, where 22-year-old Jalen Gray started working after he quit college and his dream of becoming a park ranger.
It's not a really good feeling, giving up at all, but
Sometimes it's not quitting, it's just doing the right thing.
yeah, I had to do what I had to do, so.
Today, Jalen's sole priority is his 12-year-old brother, Julian.
He's my reason.
His reason and his responsibility. Their mother and only parent died 2 years ago.
I just miss her so much.
From that day on, I swore, you know, at all costs, I'm protecting him.
And then things got worse.
Yeah, I was basically defeated. I had nowhere to go.
Life went from bad to unbearable after that big freeze hit Texas last year. The pipes burst in their house, the one their mother left them, and ruined everything.
Some strange times.
Then a contractor Jalen hired to fix it took their life savings and ran off.
Tragic, isn't it?
The boys were pretty much homeless, living with their last surviving close relative, when a nonprofit called Katy Responds caught wind. The group fixes up houses after natural disasters. Over the years, they've helped more than 100 families, but few more worthy than those boys.
Yeah, it breaks your heart.
Had to help.
Had to.
Executive Director Ron Peters.
They had no idea people would want to jump in and help them.
Which may explain their jaw-dropping, literally speechless reactions.
I was overwhelmed.
Thanks to an army of donors and volunteers, the brothers are finally and forever back in their mother's house. Fully renovated, better than ever. And although no builder could ever patch the hole in their hearts, Katy Responds did the next best thing.
There's just so many nice people in this room right now, and it makes me so happy.
When their mother died, Julian and Jalen thought all they had was each other, but they were off by one whole community. Steve Hartman, On the Road, in Katy, Texas. They come together at the crack of dawn from all directions, converging on this tiny house in St. Louis, Missouri for their weekly Wednesday visit with 66-year-old Peggy Winkowski.
It's raining.
Grandma Peggy brings everyone together.
She's just like a built-in grandma to all of us. She cares for us a lot. She really cares for us.
The students who visit Grandma Peggy attend Bishop DeBerg High School and are part of what they call the Wednesday Breakfast Club. Seeing the spread, you can understand why kids might want to come here. But what isn't so clear is how Peggy got roped into hosting. The Wednesday Breakfast Club actually used to meet at this diner. Until one day, a kid named Sam Crow said, "You know, my grandma could cook better than this." So the next Wednesday, they showed up at her doorstep.
I'm like, okay. And they came all school year every Wednesday.
That was back in 2021, and it continued merrily until that day when all joy was lost. About a year and a half ago, Peggy's grandson Sam, a sophomore at Bishop DeBerg, was killed in a hit and run. The boy was beloved. So of course, breakfast was the last thing on anyone's mind. And yet, the very next Wednesday, and virtually every Wednesday since during the school year, the kids have returned to Grandma Peggy's in numbers far greater than before.
Sam would be so proud. Look at what he started.
Everyone coming together for a heaping helping of healing.
It melts my heart.
It's really not about the food. It's just about being together.
We benefit from her. She benefits from us. It's like we feed off each other.
And we're like keeping his memory alive. So yeah.
Good morning, guys.
Everyone grieves differently, but those who manage it best always seem to blanket themselves with kindred spirits, sharing the burden, teaching each other to laugh again, and building tradition to make sure those memories are as snug and sustaining as a warm meal at Grandma's.
This is the best morning.
Steve Hartman,
Isn't it?
on the road in St. Louis.
Makes Wednesday so much fun. No.
9-year-old Robbie Gay loves an underdog. Bring him to the Flagler County Humane Society in Palm Coast, Florida, as we did back in February, and ask him to find a favorite.
Can I get in here?
He will seek out the oldest, mangiest, least adoptable mutt of the lot.
There's something about old dogs, but I just like.
Do you see yourself in these dogs?
Yes, sir.
He's the most optimistic and genuinely caring kid who has absolutely no reason to be that way.
Robbie's adoptive mom, Maria, says before he entered the foster system, Robbie was a holy terror. So badly abused, he was twice hospitalized with brain injuries. Then, 2 years ago, Maria and her husband Charles adopted him.
What did that day mean to you?
Everything.
He has come a long way, except in this one respect. Maria says he could not cry, despite the horrors of his past, or maybe because of them. The kid was a stone. Until one of Robbie's old dogs had to be put down. He wanted to hold her till the end and insisted his mom take pictures, perhaps because he knew what was about to happen. After Robbie finally let go, he told his mom, "I know how it feels not to be loved or cared for, and I don't want any animal of mine to feel that way." Nor does he want any foster kid to feel that way.
Because people don't want older people and older dogs. They only want babies and puppies.
He is so aware that it could have gone totally differently for him. And in these older dogs, Robbie's found a place to practice compassion.
Someday, Robbie wants to adopt older foster children himself.
And go up and knock on the door.
But until then, to show his commitment and do what he can, he has vowed to adopt as many old dogs as his parents will allow.
Do you love her?
And do everything in his power to encourage others to do the same. After we first told this story, Robbie started volunteering at the Humane Society, where he has become a powerful advocate for older dogs. He has inspired dozens of adoptions, all to loving families, all forever homes, and all because a sweet little boy saw his reflection in the eyes of the suffering. Steve Hartman, on the road near Palm Coast, Florida. In Cabot, Arkansas, just as the sun begins to set over the local Walmart, store janitor Bill Majalewski begins walking to work for his overnight shift. He will trek 5 miles, 2 hours, in any weather.
Pouring rain, you're walking 2 hours each way.
Yeah, I don't call out. I want to work.
He's gonna go to work no matter what.
Snow?
Snow, I picked him up at 9 degrees the other morning. Let's go.
A couple years ago, Christy Conrad saw Bill out walking and offered him a ride. She got to know him, learned about his daunting daily commute and how he's also legally blind. So she began driving him whenever she could. At least, that's how it started.
Why did you feel the need to do more?
I can't be always there, you know?
So what was your plan?
Mr. Bill's Village.
Mr. Bill's Village is a Facebook group Christy started a couple months ago. She was hoping to find just a few volunteers to keep an eye out for Bill when he's walking.
And within days, it exploded.
It caught on really quick.
And now it's like everyone's competing to give Mr. Bill a ride.
They'll click and see, is Mr. Bill out walking? Is he headed to town?
So people are just driving around the streets looking for him?
Pretty much. Just like where's Waldo, but where's Mr. Bill? Yeah. It's nice to see.
Today, the group has 1,500 members. In fact, here comes one now.
Hey, Mr. Bill, do you need a ride to Walmart?
Oh, certainly.
All right, come on, hop on in.
You always get picked up now.
Pretty much, yeah.
And it's always somebody different.
It's never the same person from one day to the next.
That's amazing.
There's a lot of good people in this world, all over the place, you know.
And on that note, here's one more good person.
I'm pretty good.
Chris Puckett is a car dealer. He wanted to give Bill a vehicle.
I wasn't aware that you couldn't drive.
But since Bill can't drive,
I'm legally blind.
I got you.
he handed the key to Christy instead, putting the car in karma.
I don't even know what to say. Bill, go get in that front seat. Go over there.
Doing unto others. It's how they roll here in Mr. Bill's Village.
Thank you.
Steve Hartman, on the road
Bye, babe.
in Cabot, Arkansas. 250 miles south of Denver, near the edge of isolation, sits the tiny town of Branson, Colorado. Blink and you'll moose it. But Branson does have a sight to see, what many have dubbed the worst football field in America.
No, I don't dispute that title.
Brad Doherty is the Branson High School athletic director and head dirts keeper.
How bad can a football field be?
We would go out before every game and fill in and collapse as many gopher holes as we could find. It felt like Bill Murray in Caddyshack.
And the grass would stab you, the grass. Maybe you'd land in cactus if you were lucky.
But the Bearcats loved football enough to endure. Until the end of last season, when the other teams in the league said they wouldn't play on this rocky rectangle of high desert anymore. It was just too dangerous, they said.
It was pretty heart-wrenching to hear that people didn't want to come play on our field.
Football in our community is the one thing that grabs everybody and brings everybody together.
Which is why Brad decided to attempt a Hail Mary. Had the kids make a video explaining how they needed artificial turf because they didn't have enough water in Branson to grow real grass, and how the price shocked the school board.
We need your help.
Brad posted the plea on social media, hoping anyone outside Branson would see it.
You just do that for kids.
But this was a goal that was destined to fail.
Yeah, and that's why it was so amazing.
Thanks to the kindness of strangers from across the country, Branson's Bad News Bearcats are back in the ballgame. Ended up raising more than $500,000 and now have the best field in the league. They just had their first game and won by almost 60 points. But Brad says the bigger victory is the field itself.
It became something that we show our kids you can aspire to do great and impossible things.
An oasis of inspiration for generations to come. Steve Hartman,
good job,
CBS News, on the road. bride and groom, Elizabeth and Jake Landit, say their wedding was like a fairy tale.
You may kiss your bride.
Everything we could have dreamed of.
Until
my dad was doing his father of the bride speech, and just a minute in, he was interrupted by some of our guests.
House on fire.
And that was the end of that.
What's going on here?
As we first reported a couple years ago, the cottage right next to their wedding venue on Mackinac Island, Michigan, caught fire, and everyone had to evacuate the area. This is a picture of the newly fleds, abandoning their reception.
I just figured we had to walk away from that.
So we just started heading towards the church.
The church where they'd just been married. This time, they prayed for everyone's safety. And in the end, no one was hurt, and even the building was saved.
Seemed like the only thing that couldn't be salvaged was their wedding day. But unbeknownst to the bride and groom, while they were in that church praying, angels were swooping in from all over town.
We needed to step up and do the right thing.
First, the chef at the venue took all 120 meals to a restaurant next door.
We just cooked it, sauced it, and off down the street it went.
Down the street to a resort that had an event space available.
And we started just pulling everything that we had.
And what they didn't have, yet another restaurant provided.
So we got it all on a cart and pushed it down Main Street.
And because of everyone's efforts,
it's gonna be great.
In less than an hour, the bride was back to blushing.
And what did you charge for this help?
Nothing.
I didn't charge him anything.
Nothing.
No.
To have them pick up a reception out of ashes in a very literal sense made the wedding better than we ever could have imagined.
2 years later, they are now one person more. Last month, Elizabeth, Jake, and baby Owen returned to Mackinac Island to celebrate their anniversary. This time, without the dramatics, but with some perspective.
Dare I say you're glad it worked out the way it did?
I caught up with the family over Zoom.
I don't know if I quite use the word glad, but that was one day, one part of our life journey, and now we have a much more important part now.
Adorable evidence that even when life turns on you, it often turns back. Steve Hartman, CBS News, on the road. At this secondhand store in Baltimore, we found a first-rate fish story. Last week, someone posted a picture of this bizarre chair on a Facebook page called Weird Secondhand Finds That Just Need to Be Shared. And when Syracuse auto mechanic Emily Del Favaro saw that chair, she about had a cow because of what's on her calf. And here's the truly amazing part. Emily never owned the chair. She just saw it once, years ago, and felt strangely compelled to have it tattooed.
That's the fate about it. I saw that chair and it was everything for me.
You make it seem almost mystical.
I believe that it is.
Almost like you have to get the tattoo and you don't know why.
Exactly.
But answers were coming. After she posted a picture of her tattoo on that Facebook page,
I was like, oh my God.
Hundreds of women in the group felt a call to action.
It belonged to her.
You felt like Emily had to have this chair.
A chair like that and a tattoo that matches, it's kismet. Like, it's serendipity. It just has to happen.
So, even though none of these women had ever met, they started a GoFundMe, raised $600 to buy the chair for this total stranger, and then devised a plan to personally deliver it.
Perfect fit. First, Jen Gerard picked it up in Baltimore, drove it to Meredith, who drove it to Marianne, and so on, up Interstate 81 more than 300 miles.
Getting it in.
Sarah Edwards carried the precious cargo on its last leg.
It is very similar to driving my children home from the hospital the first day they were born. Nervousness, excitement.
I can't even comprehend why anybody would want to do something like this for me.
It's a legitimate question.
And it very quickly was not about a chair anymore.
It gave me something that I needed and I didn't know I needed.
I think a lot of people are looking for ways to connect and looking for any excuse to connect. And if it's a fish chair, it's a fish chair.
That's right. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
Clearly, kindness can take many forms.
We're a fellowship. We're a fellowship of the fish chair.
But the best kind of kindness is always that random act
Oh my God.
that somehow makes people believe again.
I did not need the chair, but I did need to be reminded that kindness lurks in even the weirdest little places.
All we need to do is fish for it.
Sarah, you did great.
Steve Hartman, on the road in Syracuse, New York. I thought I had reported on every subject imaginable until this week when I traveled to Attleboro, Massachusetts.
All right, let's talk SpaghettiOs.
Okay.
It's the first interview I've ever begun like that.
This is Crystal McDonald.
You never know where life will lead you to.
Crystal's unlikely obsession with canned pasta began after the birth of her daughter, Ashlyn. Ashlyn is autistic, and earlier this year, she stopped eating food altogether, with the sole exception of SpaghettiOs and meatballs. Teachers and therapists were working to expand her palate when the pandemic hit, clearing grocery store shelves of a lot more than just toilet paper.
Couldn't find SpaghettiOs anywhere. It was like they were there one day and the next they were gone.
Wait, why was there a run on SpaghettiOs?
I don't know if people thought like if the world ended, you could survive on SpaghettiOs. I just know that I was losing my mind trying to find them. So.
And that's when the miracle happened. Like prepackaged manna from heaven, SpaghettiOs just started showing up on her doorstep, in the mail, hundreds of cans from people in the community who'd heard about Ashlyn in the local paper and wanted to help.
If it wasn't for the kindness of people like that, we would not have gotten by. When you have a child with special needs, their future is always in the back of your mind. Who's going to take care of them when I get old? And to see people come out and embrace us gave me so much hope that they will love her and take care of her when I'm not here. Sorry.
SpaghettiOs is hardly a culinary cause celeb. But in this home, at least, every can is now fortified with faith in humanity. Steve Hartman, on the road in Attleboro, Massachusetts. It was the wow that wowed the world. As we first reported in 2019, the Handel and Haydn Society was performing at Boston Symphony Hall. When, at the end of this one particularly beautiful piece, someone in the audience did something very unusual. Listen.
Did you hear that? Someone yelled, wow, and it resonated, not just in this hall, but throughout the classical music community. It was just such a departure from typical audience protocol, which is why the president of the Handel and Haydn Society was absolutely thrilled.
I was like, that's fantastic.
This is David Sneed.
And also there's a sense of wonder in that wow. I mean, you could really hear on the tape, he was like, this was amazing.
David was so smitten by the outburst, as was the audience, that he decided to try to find the voice responsible.
This reminds me a little bit of Cinderella. You're trying to find somebody who was at the ball, but you had no way of finding them.
So they didn't have email back then, huh?
You wrote to everybody in the audience.
Wrote to everybody in the audience.
Yeah.
And eventually, that email found its way to concert goer Stephen Matten.
We did dash out like we were turning into pumpkins, so. Yeah.
Stephen was there with his grandson Ronan, who was 9 at the time. Ronan is the one who shouted wow, which surprised Stephen more than anyone.
Because he just doesn't do that. You know, usually he's in a world by himself. Ronan, what do you see?
Ronan is autistic and considered nonverbal. But clearly, music may be a wormhole into his heart and mind. Since we first told this story, Ronan's family has built a relationship with the orchestra, attending multiple concerts and private performances. There's also a new children's book out titled The Boy Who Said Wow. It tells the tale of the quiet kid born into a noisy world who doesn't speak much, but when he does, it's a real wow moment. Steve Hartman, on the road in Boston. Highland Park, Michigan, near Detroit, has all the makings of a ghost town. This was the library. This was the high school. Much of the town just plain was. Fortunately, one man's wasteland is another woman's blank slate.
I just felt that it was a space to build and do things on.
And run through your background in urban planning.
I don't have anything in urban planning except for sitting on this porch conjuring up what I want to do on this block. That's it. Look at all this space. We can do anything we want.
As we first reported in 2016.
You got a better imagination than I do.
Shamayim Harris is the unofficial architect of the most unlikely redevelopment project in Michigan.
We own the lot on the corner.
She set up a nonprofit.
That lot over there too.
Got donations.
And I own this lot right here too.
And started a crusade to reverse the decline on her block.
Are you paying all these people? I see a lot of people working.
Well, a couple of them, but most of them are volunteers.
Wow.
She tries to uplift everyone.
This is just some of her army.
When she needs something done, she knows exactly who to call, and it's gonna get done. That's why Mama Shoe's so amazing.
They call her Mama Shoe, and they say she'll put a boot in your behind if you don't help her rebuild this block of Avalon Street, where she drew up plans for a park and after-school homework house here, basketball, volleyball, and tennis courts here, a greenhouse and cafe in this old garage, and much more.
You're going to see this whole block looking like some of the suburban blocks that I see with the grass trimmed and flowers and all of that. That's what you're going to see. I know.
6 years later, her vision is coming true. When spring rolls around and this block awakens, the gardens will grow, kids will gather on the courts and in the homework house, and new families may move in.
How about that?
I know. Folks have gotten lots. They building this and that on their garden space, park areas. It's happening.
Michigan's most unlikely urban planner. Now also one of its most successful. Steve Hartman, on the road in Highland Park, Michigan. 64-year-old Betty Strang of Greenfield, Wisconsin is getting ready for an anniversary. The anniversary of a terrible day she can neither forget nor remember.
I don't remember anything from that day.
1 year ago, a red SUV tore through a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin, killing 6 and injuring more than 60 others, including Betty Strang, who suffered a traumatic brain injury. Betty was part of a dance team called the Milwaukee Dancing Grannies, which lost 3 members that day, but gained something too.
When I got home from the hospital, I know I emailed the Grannies to say I was home, and they were so supportive, like, oh, thank you.
We assembled a few of the dancers and found a bond.
I knew they were all there for me.
Almost like family.
And that's what kept me sane.
I don't think we could have done it without each other. I really don't.
Betty, I'm so glad you're back with us.
By March, the Grannies were already practicing again.
Still recovering, but I'm so happy to be here.
And this week, they returned to walk the same street in the same parade. For some members, like Betty, who at one point couldn't imagine leaving the house, this coming out was an absolute triumph. But for all members, the parade was also a chance to send a message to anyone along the route who might be marching down a comeback trail of their own.
Think about the Grannies. They came back, I can too.
I plan to dance with the Grannies forever.
It's a group of feisty women here, so, yeah.
Feisty role models of resilience. Who turned out to be much tougher than their pom-poms would imply. Steve Hartman, CBS News, on the road. A lot of kids in America want to run a lemonade stand, but not many feel like they have to. 8-year-old Emery Johnson started her business after a terrible, nightmare morning.
I woke up with the worst news of my life.
As we first reported a few months ago, Emery's mother, Carly, died unexpectedly at the age of 29. She was a single mom, and Emery's everything.
We go see Mommy?
Which is why she couldn't understand, first time she went to the cemetery with her grandmother Jennifer, why everyone else got giant granite headstones, but her mom, just this tiny metal one.
Did that bother you? Why?
Because it felt like she was being left out.
Her grandma tried to explain how they couldn't afford a headstone right now.
She had tears in her eyes and wanted to help.
So she did the only thing that she could think of to raise money.
Yes.
I made a lemonade stand.
A lemonade stand to pay for her mother's headstone. At first, she didn't make mention of her cause.
Thank you.
But word got out.
Thank you.
And before long,
Thank you.
Emery says it seemed like just about everyone here in Scottsboro, Alabama was thirsty for lemonade. The price was $1.
Thank you.
But she says people liked it so much,
How many cups do you want?
they often paid more.
Thank you. The most that we got for 1 cup of lemonade was $300.
For lemonade?
Yeah, for 1 cup.
Whoa!
After we first told this story, a local monument company installed a headstone for free. So the money she raised, more than $17,000, can now all go into savings for when she's older. But more importantly, Emery has taken that lemon life handed her and squeezed out hope.
Her comment was when all these people came, she couldn't believe so many people cared for her and loved her mommy.
They always say it takes a village to raise a child, but sometimes it also takes a village to mourn a mom. Folks around here take that role seriously, offering Emery comfort by the cupful and all the love she can drink.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Steve Hartman, on the road in Scottsboro, Alabama. When people call for an ambulance in Sackett's Harbor, New York, and the crew shows up at their front door, almost everyone has the same reaction.
A lot of people just come up and ask you, like, wait, how old are you?
You're the EMT?
Or like, when's the ambulance coming?
So what do you say?
We just explain to them, we are the ambulance.
These baby-faced first responders took over the village's emergency medical services not long after COVID hit, when all the older EMS volunteers either couldn't or wouldn't do the job anymore. That exodus, part of a national trend. In rural America, 35% of ambulance services are all volunteer. And many of those departments, 69%, say they're struggling to find help. Fortunately, at least in Sackett's Harbor, desperation led to inspiration. In New York State, you can be an EMT at 17 and can assist even younger. And when these local high schoolers heard that, they decided to step up, took the required training, and resuscitated the department.
We went from not even having our licenses to saving people's lives.
Being able to help those people, I really like doing that. So.
And by all accounts, they are doing that. Whether you've fallen off a ladder,
They're very professional.
have severe chest pains,
They know what they're doing.
or can barely breathe.
Absolutely credit them for saving my life.
This group of teens and young adults save the day almost every day, sacrificing much of their free time and surrendering some of their innocence. They say the hardest part is telling people their loved one is gone.
It's like time freezes and everything stops, and that's one of the hardest things to do, for sure.
And then you go back to algebra class.
Yeah. Was hard.
So why do it?
Because who else is there to do it if we don't? Someone needs to. Someone needs to step up and do it.
American youth to the rescue once more. Steve Hartman, on the road in Sackett's Harbor, New York. On Detroit's west side, we found a story on a second story.
It's a duplex.
Yeah.
Downstairs renter Colin McConnell says the new neighbors above have been disrupting his peace below.
I thought it was the Detroit Lions practicing up there some nights, you know.
In actuality, it was 3 peewees, running backs, and fourths across the hardwood. The kids belonged to 33-year-old Don Wilson. And for months, Colin knew nothing of Don beyond what he could hear through the floorboards. But when they finally met, Colin says he picked up a whisper of something much more.
You could just tell something was weighing on him. So that's when I kind of was like, "You good?" And he just kind of was like, "Not really."
Turns out, Don had just lost the love of his life and mother of his children. LaKenya had a stroke and died this past summer. She was 39.
Just not having that person here, you know what I mean? Like, you know, I can't be like her. You know?
Juggling the kids and a full-time job with virtually no savings was overwhelming.
After Colin heard that, the noise from above became the least of his worries. He posted a video on social media asking for anything to help this guy. And within hours, the boxes started showing up on his doorstep.
This is all for you, bro. Yeah, bro.
It was everything Don would need for Christmas and beyond. But he says the best gift was that it all came from strangers.
That was the best feeling because it was random people that you don't expect, that surprise joy. It was just, it's amazing. I never felt it before.
Very soon, people around the world will be listening for sleigh bells. But in this tiny duplex, this man will be listening happily for the pounding feet of children enchanted and know that Christmas has come.
Look at that.
Steve Hartman on the road in Detroit.